right, folks, today on Flats Class YouTube, we're going to talk about these little creature baits. That's right. It's early spring and we've got awesome sight fishing conditions, and fish can be really challenging to fool. But we're going to be able to do it because I'm going to show you how with these little bitty creature baits. Stay tuned. This episode of Flats Class YouTube is brought to you by Aquatraction, your go-to solution for advanced marine flooring. Well, it's springtime, and one of the big challenges in the springtime is the weather. Well, it's freaking beautiful. I mean, almost every day it's bluebird, gorgeous weather. Fish are coming out of the back, they're moving out on the flats. There's more angling pressure because everyone wants to get out there and catch fish. The thing I hear all the time though is, damn it man, I cannot catch these fish. I'm throwing paddle tails, I'm throwing bucktails, I'm throwing mirror-deans, I'm throwing mini-deans. I'm throwing everything I know at these fish, and I can't get these redfish to do anything. Well, that's why I'm gonna share with you some little bitty creature baits that do a hell of a good job. And basically all you have to do is get into a zone where you know the fish are, lay one of those creature baits out in front of it, put it in a position where it's going to cross its path and stop it, and they'll take care of the rest. Well, I set everything up. I want you to go fishing with me and Captain Brian Chamberlain, one of my best buds, and watch us catch a big ass redfish on one of these creature baits. Boy, once I saw him make the turn, I knew it was on.
Being able to pull and reverse at full speed.
Yeah, this boat lets you do it. You let me know if I need to
No, we're good.
poke you down.
Yeah.
Got him on the light rod. But it's amazing, you know, it was just changing colors. That's the first fish we got to present with that color.
And it was kind of like we finally got to where it was a positive looking fish.
Yes. Yep. But for him to eat that little bait that looks like a crab. Wow. He's humping it. He is not happy with me.
You're like the wood to him.
Man, I just saw him go down and he just smoked it. I was like, that's a reaction I've been looking for all day. There's another color called Bama bug that's kind of a green brown that I like, but I think this is the hot crawl color. It's a pretty good color. Looks like a crab, shrimp.
I think he liked it.
I think he liked it a lot.
It's a good quality.
Oh yeah, it's a meathead. It's a meathead. Who says you can't catch them on bass baits, huh? Alright. Brian and I have been poling around these creeks all morning long. Been seeing a lot of fish on the skinny water incoming. We're just now getting where the tide's getting right to get a couple of good ones. Got a nice snook earlier. Look at that.
Yes, I like it.
Wow.
You got to shake hands with their tail.
Yeah. That is beautiful. That's it. Trd Bugs. What a nice looking fish.
He smoked it too. That was really awesome.
Yeah. That's a chunk. That is a chunk. Good spy, my friend, seeing that one. I had to look for him for a while.
He masked in with those mullets really good.
Yeah, I know, but I think the key was he he was looking into the tree line and not looking at us, and we were throwing past him and bringing it back to him. All right, let's do that a few more times. All right, let's talk about creature feature. That's what we're going to talk about, because that's 80% of a redfish's diet is stuff that lives in and on the bottom. Now, I know some of you live in places where they feed heavily or predate heavily on mullet and pinfish and mud minnows and creek chubs and all those finfish. But by and large, no matter where you live, redfish, well, they eat stuff on the bottom. That's right. If you've ever cleaned a redfish, you see crab shells and claws and shrimp fins and heads and things like that inside these fish's gullets, because that's what they're eating most of the time. So that's the best way to fool them. So they're going to see colors like greens, browns, reds, oranges, any earthy organic color that blends in with the bottom, they're going to see it best. So out of those 10 baits that I had up here, there's about 5 of them I really like to throw because I can throw them on casting gear. They're heavy enough to throw on casting gear. I throw them on the 1/6 head mushrooms, and typically I'll throw them on the HD version or the Pro version that has a little stouter hook. So it gives it a little bit more weight and makes it a lot easier for me to cast with a casting rod. So here's one of my favorite, and it's the Trd Hogs. Now the Trd Hogs is probably a bait that's close to about 3 inches long. It's got a rib body, so it'll hold some scent if I want to add some scent on there, and it makes a little bit of noise if I rush it through the water. But I'm only sight fishing with this bait. I'll see a fish moving down a mangrove shoreline or through a pothole. I'll launch the cast out in front of them, let it hit the bottom, and then drag it up in front of them real quick and stop it and never move it. The best part about Z-Man Elastec is all these tentacles and legs and things move even when you're not doing anything. If there's any current at all, or just the fish coming down toward the bait itself, the wave, the hydrodynamic wave coming off the fish will make this bait move, which makes them think, oh, that's something alive and I'm gonna eat it. Trd Hogs, great little bait, one of my favorites, this little pumpkin green, it's perfect. Here's one, not on the market yet, but will soon be, and Bugs Fishing puts this out. This is a cool little creature bait. It's a Ned-style mushroom head bucktail jig. Now, I'm working with him to come up with some flats class colors in this that are gonna look a lot like fiddler crabs and stuff, but this is a really good juvenile blue crab look, and it's awesome. One of my favorites, absolute favorites to throw at them. And because there's a little bit of rabbit fur and stuff in these little Bugs jigs, this thing breathes when the fish get close to it, just like the Elastec material. Another fantastic creature bait. Here's the bait that in the video Fishing with Captain Brian, we caught the fish on. This is the Trd Bugs. It looks like almost like an insect, but it's very crab-like, super crab-like. You can swim it and these little flaps just kind of go crazy. And it stands up and these flaps actually stand up and appeal to the fish. Killer little bait. And I like it in the brighter colors most of the time because I can see where the bait is in relation to the path of the fish. I stop it there and just quiver for 1 second and let it stop, and they'll smash it every time. Another great little bait that a lot of my clients and fans out there that are big Flats Class fans have sent me is the Trd Craws. Now this is actually a crayfish look-alike. This is the hot craw color. Very scaly looking bait. Fish see it really easy. And if fish are tuned into fiddler crabs in those places in like Northeast Florida and along the Georgia and Carolina coast, really hot redfish, tough bite bait right there. And then lastly, something new that came in the bass market that I like to swim up in front of these fish and then just let them make up their mind what it is, a prawn shrimp or whatever, and that's the baby goat. I fish it a ton in this color here that I can see very well. This is hot snakes, but the little baby goat really gets their attention and those legs really start swimming. And it allows me, if I see another species of fish, whether it be a snook or a big fat trout, sow trout that might be in these same waters that I'm probing around looking for the redfish, gives me a shot at catching them on those. Those are probably my top 5. Now you're probably thinking, So what am I gonna throw that stuff on? It's easy. Remember, I said it's a 1/6 of an ounce mushroom jig head. Well, how much does that weigh? Well, for you guys that aren't math whizzes, that's somewhere between an 1/8 and a 1/4. But when you add the plastic and everything, it's a true 1/4 ounce bait. It truly is. You just need to pick the right action rod, the right weight line, and basically the right, I'm gonna say, technique to cast. And if you can do all that right, you can make a 70 to 100 foot cast and catch these fish. Now let me share the delivery system with you next. All right, let's talk about a few of the components for the creature baits that will definitely ensure success. One, you have to have the right weight jig head. 1/6 of an ounce allows me to cast this lure on casting gear. Now, for you spinning rod enthusiasts, you might want to drop down to 1/10 ounce and you can get away with it. But I'm using 1/6 ounce. Now, a lot of you have complained in the past about the finesse shrooms jigs. The hook bends too easy. Most of that is because it's your fault. That's right, it's your fault. You're using too heavy an action rod and the drag's wound down too tight. You just bite down too tight on it. But if you want something stronger because you're pulling them away from mangroves or off oyster or in some current, they have solved the problem. These are the Ned locks, Ned rigs. And these are HD versions. They're a lot tougher. They were designed for the redfish market, not the bass market. So they're much better. So I prefer these. They have that little collar in there that helps keep the actual bait on. And by the time you put that paired up with your Trd Bugs or one of the other creature baits I talked about, you have a solid 1/4 ounce feel in your hand that's compact. That's important. Because when you have a 1/4 ounce setup and it's a longer bait, it's a hell of a lot harder to cast. But when it's in a 2.5 to 2 3/4 inch size, and it's 1/4, well, it's like throwing a stone. You can cast it, you can flat out cast it. The second part you're going to need to know about is because we're fishing these things super slow, in most cases, I always talk to you guys about using mono leader, especially heavier mono leader because we're fishing for bigger fish. But in this style of fishing, to get these tough springtime clear water fish to eat, you got to downsize. Now, you can downsize to 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, but these Cigar Gold stuff that they came out with, this 20, well, this 20, when you look at it, it looks like it's about 10. So there's not a lot of line diameter there. So, I mean, you're gonna have to play the fish, but it's about invisible. If I've ever seen invisible, this is it. So I usually put on a good stretch. I'm gonna say 36 inches, sometimes 42 to 48 inches of this stuff on my rod. So now you've got kind of the terminal end of this whole system. The rod that I'm using is the Terramar. If you look here, this is the Terramar XX, and there's the model number right there that I like to throw. Now, when you look up that model number, you're gonna find out that this rod is designed to throw baits between 1/4 and 1/2. And I've taught you in rod action videos before that you try to pick the middle of that lure weight zone to get a sweet spot. And that rod will cast that weight lure the best. In which case, that would make this 3/8. But let me tell you something about the Terramar XX and why it's worth the money. It's worth the money because every time I have played with these rods in different rod actions, if I'm in the lure weight at all, it casts it all good because they use a carbon tape wrap pattern on here called Spiral X. So they take carbon tape on the outside of the blank and they wrap it at a 45-degree angle up and a 45-degree angle back down on the opposite direction, so it gives you that X pattern. What it does is it doesn't let the tip twist or anything. So this thing stores and releases energy like nothing I've ever seen. So now I'm fearless as far as throwing anything on on these rods because I know it will carry the full weight. This little medium light has turned into a favorite, especially with this little Trd K. This is the one that you saw in the video I was fishing with Brian, the 70XG. This is the Trd K. Small spool, and if I can barely knock it a little bit. Knock. I have it set for 1. Let me, if I don't knock the tip off this doggone thing, I've got it set there on the dial for 1. I take the brakes off it as much as I can so I can throw these things because I prefer throwing these rigs for sight fishing on casting gear. Why do I prefer that? Well, the reason I like it that way is when I see a fish close quarter, I can make a nice smooth cast, low to the water, drop the bait, doesn't make a splash, doesn't make a noise, and pull it and wait and catch the fish. If I see a fish up along the mangroves, I can again, low trajectory casting without having to skip, drop it up there right up underneath the tree limb and against the prop root and then drag it out almost like the crab swimming out and drop it in front of them. Bam, they hit it. So to me, it's an advantage. For someone else, they're more comfortable throwing spinning gear. You just have to pick a 7-foot medium light type rod, maybe even 7.5 might give you a little bit more tip and be able to make that same cast feathering line. But for me, it's just easier to feather line on a casting rod than it is a spinning rod. So that's my setup. The 7-foot medium light Shimano Terramar X, the Trd K 70XG. I've got this spooled up with 20-pound Power Pro. I've got the Seaguar 20 on here. I've got the Nedlocks HD 1/6. And then any of those 5 creature baits, or 10 that you saw in the opening video with that, well, that gets the job done. If you like what you're seeing here at Flats Class YouTube, guys, give us a thumbs up. I've been doing this stuff for 30 plus years. It's what I do. I want to make you a better angler. So subscribe, tell your fishing buddies, or don't tell them and have a big advantage. Till next time, I'm gonna go pull something else out of the truck so we can talk about the next YouTube video.